Greetings and welcome to another Tomorrow's World webcast. My name is Wallace Smith, and I have to admit, today's topic is a huge one, and I could talk about it all day. I have strong feelings about this topic, but you don't have that much time. I don't have that much time. So we're going to focus, but it is important, and I guarantee you're going to see this topic continue to come up over and over again in the news. Actually, I was moved to talk about this by a Christianity Today article published August 24th, 2015. It was titled, "Assisted Suicide and Real Death with Dignity." And it talks about assisted suicide and euthanasia and various laws in various places. And I just want to comment, not concerning the United States, but concerning Europe. If you live in Europe and you're watching this now, you know that several countries there on your continent are like laboratories because there are already fairly liberal laws in place. I say liberal in terms of allowing a lot, allowing assisted suicide and euthanasia in a variety of cases. And if you're familiar with the history of those laws, they often started small and got larger. The article talks about those nations and says, in countries where assisted suicide has been made legal, euthanasia, different from assisted suicide in that a doctor directly acts to end a patient's life, has expanded unpredictably. The number of mercy killings, quote unquote, in Belgium rose 27% in 2014 to 5 killings per day on average. It talks about the Netherlands, actually, where now they allow people over 70 to choose to have suicide, to be assisted in suicide, simply because they're tired of life and tired of living with no other condition in place. It says, when Britain was considering assisted suicide legislation, Dutch ethicist Theo Boer reportedly told the House of Lords, "Don't do it, Britain. Some slopes are truly slippery." And it is a slippery slope. The article actually talks about a case in Switzerland where a woman asked for suicide, paid for suicide, just simply because she was tired of seeing her looks deteriorate. What is wrong with us? What is missing in our cultural conscience? I can tell you what's missing. The God of heaven is missing in our cultural conscience. The God who is the giver of life and has set human life aside as something special and something unique and something to be considered sacred to Him. When we understand that, everything else is different. Everything else about life, human life, is something different. We understand that we are crafted in His image for His purposes, and that our lives are in His hands to do with what He will. You know, it's interesting, the fact that we're made in God's image is one of the key understandings of Scripture. In fact, in Genesis chapter 9 and verse 6, a good example, what makes killing a person different than killing an animal? You know, an animal kills an animal, it's not murder, and yet if you kill a human being, that's murder. What makes the difference? God says in Genesis 9, "Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. For in the image of God He made man." We're not just animals. Human life is sacred to God. And while I'm sympathetic to those who pass these laws, because often they're moved by sympathy for those who are suffering, and if you don't have sympathy for those who are suffering, then something is wrong with you. But it's interesting to watch the slide, because the laws may be motivated by sympathy, but eventually it comes down to spreadsheets. What do you do with a terminally ill patient whose life could be extended with medicine, but that medicine is expensive, and the cost to society is so much cheaper if they would just choose a quicker route out? When we lose sight of God, we lose sight of the one who tells us life is sacred, that human life is something to be respected and valued in all of its conditions, and that He is the one to be trusted with when it comes to an end for His purposes. If we lose sight of God, we lose sight of the grounding and the anchor of all moral and ethical questions, and we come to the state our society is in today. Expect to see more questions like this on the horizon, but don't expect to find any answers unless you look to the God of all things. Thank you for watching today. Please do join us for more webcasts at tomorrowsworld.org.